guys, it's Nat, and today I thought I would do the end of year book tag that I got inspired to do by Larry, whose video I'll leave a link to down in the description box. But I also watched Madison's video that I will also leave a link to in the description box. I decided to use the prompts questions from Madison's video because I liked them more. I've noticed this tag, there's a lot of different variations of the tag going around on BookTube, so I like these questions the most, so I'm gonna be using these. So first one is most disappointing read of the year, and for me that will be Play With Me by Becca Mack. This is a hockey romance that follows Jenny and Garrett. Garrett is a hockey player. This is set in Canada, I believe. And yeah, he's a hockey player and he kind of is crushing on his captain's little sister, who is a dancer. So Jenny is very feisty. They end up just like kind of dating. Well, first it's just all physical, but to me it felt like this book was way too long. It was 500 pages. It could have easily been 300 pages because for me it just felt like I was reading the same thing over and over again, which I don't like. Like, the relationship progression could have been the same if the book was shorter. I am planning on reading another book from this series because I ended up purchasing it for my Kindle, but I'm in no rush to pick that up because I've heard from other reviewers on Goodreads that Becca Mack is just not for everyone. So yeah, this was a disappointing read because everyone on Book Talk was hyping this book up a lot. So guys, for the underdog of the year, so question 2, I wanted to refilm, hence the different background, and like I look different. But yeah, I wanted to say my underdog is Grass by Kyung-suk Gentry Kim. This is a anti-war graphic novel following the lives of comfort women. So I'm gonna read what it says at the beginning of the graphic novel to tell you what the term comfort women actually means. So it is a term used to refer to victims of Japanese military sexual slavery. Most of these comfort women, they weren't prostitutes, they were just forced into sex slavery for the Japanese military. Some of them were kidnapped off the streets, and some of them thought they were applying for a job to work in a factory. It was really like sad to read about, but I think it's very good to read stories like this. I heard of comfort women because I lived in Korea, so I saw statues of comfort women, and like what these poor women went through, it's like so sad, and it's a very powerful read. So ever since I have read it, I read it in November, I've been thinking about it constantly. My cousin actually recommended me this book. She read it in Polish and she was like, Natalia, you have to read this, especially since you enjoy like learning more about the history of like Japan, South Korea, even China. Like, I don't know a lot about it because I wasn't taught it in schools, but this really opened my eyes to what these poor women went through. Some of the survivors of this are still alive, and literally all they want from the Japanese government is an apology, but they're not getting it. They want the Japanese government to show that they acknowledge what they have done, but they still haven't gotten it. So yeah, I highly recommend this. I think this is an underdog of the year for me because I'm actually surprised that not a lot of my friends have read it, and literally I didn't know this existed until my cousin recommended it to me. But I really love Korean literature, so yeah, if you are also a fan of Korean literature or just want to learn more about history, highly recommend this. But of course, trigger warnings. It does talk about sexual abuse, like what these poor women went through when they were enslaved as well. Yeah, it was awful, but a powerful read for sure. So number 3, a book you loved in the moment but don't think about now. And for me that will be My Darling Wife by Madden-mills. This is the first book in the Darling series. Basically, I don't remember the characters' names, but there is I think he's an NFL player. He's very wealthy, of course. And one day he gets his sports car stolen by the heroine of the story because she's trying to get away from her violent ex, and they end up getting into a marriage of convenience. I don't remember why. I actually really liked this book, but again, I don't remember a lot about it. I kind of forget that I read it this year. And also I picked up the sequel, or like the second book in this series, following a different couple. It's called My Darling Jane, and I actually DNF'd it. So that's why I keep forgetting that I really enjoyed My Darling Wife, because the second book was such a letdown. I didn't even finish it. So yeah, that's a book I liked, but I don't remember reading, or like don't think about. So number 4, my fave book couples of the year. I actually have 3. 2 are written by Stephanie Archer. So first couple is from The Fake Out, which is the first book I ever read by Stephanie Archer, and it is Rory and Hazel. I love these two. Fake dating trope. Yes, they knew each other from high school. Yes, she tutored him in high school and he had a crush on her. Yes, and then yeah, they fake date to make her ex jealous. Yes. They were just amazing. Then we have Hayden and Darcy from The Wingman. This is the 3rd book in the series that The Fake Out is the 2nd book in. I don't remember the 1st book, but I love Hayden and Darcy. They're best friends. He was also best friends with her ex. Like, he's always had a crush on her. They have a lot of they have a favorite romantasy series that became like a TV show, but it's a book series that they gush over. They're both fans of. He originally is helping her become a player because she's never done that before, but ends up falling for her, and he's like, well, he was already falling for her before, but he's like, you're mine, Darcy. So love Hayden and Darcy. And then we have Kennedy and, correct me if I say his name wrong, Isaiah from Play Along by Liz Tomfordy. Kennedy and Isaiah, I've always wanted them to get together because I read the rest of this series. So we've already had glimpses of Kennedy and Isaiah because Isaiah was mentioned in the previous books and so was Kennedy. He is a baseball player and she is like one of their rehabilitation people. I don't know what they're called. Like, she helps the players look after their bodies. And then yeah, one day they end up getting married in Vegas, stay married. He's trying to convince his new wife to stay married to him because Isaiah has had a crush on Kennedy since he met her, since she joined the company, but he couldn't really make a move on her even though he has been flirting with her for the past like 4 years because she used to be engaged, but she's no longer engaged. So I don't know, just guy falling first, guy falling head over heels and getting the girl he loves so much. Oh, I loved that. So they're like my old favorite couple that I constantly think about. 5 is A Book You Can't Stop Recommending, Fried by Ali Hazelwood. In April of this year, I finally picked this up. I don't know when it came out. I kept going to work and all I kept thinking about is this book. It is so good. It's basically about Misery Lark, who is a daughter of one of the most powerful vampire. I don't know why I'm looking at the back, but she has been always an outcast. She used to live with the humans. Like, she's also, ever since childhood, been used kind of as collateral damage because there's wares, there's vampires, and there's humans. They kind of give one of their own to the other to keep the peace at bay. So Misery has been living with the humans, but her dad ends up bringing her back to the vampire world, and he's like, you have to marry the new leader of the wares. So she ends up getting married. It's a marriage of convenience. More ends up happening. But this book just took me by surprise because I didn't think that I would love it as much as I did. It's a very good book if you love paranormal stories, if you love a good romance, and I'm hoping Miss Ali Hazelwood writes another book, like a companion to this, because I need more from the side characters. This book also has really good side characters. I feel like all I did in April at work was talk about this book to my colleagues and anyone who would listen to me on Instagram. So I love this book. Definitely have been non-stop recommending. So 6, a book that surprised me, and this is actually a horror book. We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. So this book took me by surprise because, I don't know, I didn't hear too many people talking about it, and I actually saw it in a bookstore and I loved the cover. And it also says at the front of the book on the cover, "You let them back in, you shouldn't have." So this is about Eve and Charlie. They're a young couple. They end up buying this house for a deadly good price. They're renovating it so they can sell it for a profit and then move to the next project. But one day, Charlie is out doing errands. Eve is by herself. She's also a people pleaser. And a family ends up knocking on the door, and they're like, the father says he used to live here and he wants to show his family around where he used to live. So, as I said, Eve is a people pleaser, so she ends up letting them in, and some strange things start happening. This book took me by surprise because I didn't think I would enjoy it. It has an open-ended ending. Open-ended ending. Basically, you don't really know what happened at the end, but it was still so cool to read. I highly recommend it. It's a little bit slow-paced at the beginning, but once you get attached to the characters and this house, kind of, you just want to know what happens. What also surprised me is this book has these like documents between chapters. So we're reading what's happening from Eve's perspective, but then you get these docs about the history of the house or history on these cases surrounding the mystery of this house, and I don't know, it was just really good. So this book definitely surprised me. So number 7, it says new fave author you discovered in 2024, and that is Megan Lally, who is the author of That's Not My Name. I actually recently read this, I think in November, and I binge read it. It was so good. I highly recommend the audiobook. So in this one, we basically have Mary, who wakes up in a ditch, not remembering who she is. She ends up going to a police station, or like a police officer finds her, and older gentleman comes in and he's like frantic. My daughter Mary is gone. He brings all these documents with him to show that this girl, because he ends up seeing her, he's like, oh my god, that's my daughter, which is like perfect for the police officer because they couldn't figure out who she was. So yeah, she ends up going with this father, but is she really Mary? That's what you're trying to find out. And then you also follow the perspective of, oh my god, I forgot his name, but a guy who's also the same age as Mary, and he's trying to find his girlfriend that's missing, Lola. So yeah, it was really interesting listening to this book. I ended up listening to it in 2 days, so I really like Megan Lally, and I'm already waiting for No Place to Hide to come out, which I believe comes out in like the first half of 2025. Number 8, happiest read of the year, and I think for me that is Play Along by Liz Tom 4D. I just loved Kennedy and Ryan, I feel like, because also in the book when they get married, Kennedy's like, because this is a fake marriage, you're gonna teach me how to show feelings to my partner, because Kennedy grew up in a cold environment, so she's not used to people touching her, like she's not comfortable with it. And I think that's why this book is one of my happiest reads, because Isaiah is such a ray of sunshine that like him being able to show Kennedy, who he loves dearly, how to be more affectionate and like just living out his dream, like I don't know, it just made me very happy. And yeah, the ending is very happy too. Kind of. At first it was a little bit sad, but then it got happier. So yeah, that's my happiest read. 9, most frustrating book you read in 2024, and that is Come Out Wherever You Are by Harley Beck. This is a horror book, horror erotica, that follows this one girl that kills Nate, the star quarterback of her high school, with her best friend by accident, of course. They were like high and drunk, but they end up getting away with the murder because best friend's dad is like influential in the town or something. And yeah, so the story takes place a year later, closer to Nate's death anniversary. But then, surprisingly, Nate comes back to life, and then it's just basically him kind of taking revenge on the girl that killed him. And he just kept saying, I know you're not this innocent girl that everyone thinks you are. It was awful. Like, that's why this book is so frustrating to me, because I don't understand why it has a 4-point-something star rating on Goodreads. Like, it was awful. It made me feel icky. I had to skim some sections, especially the graphic sexual assault on the page. I had to skip it. It was awful to read about, so this was very, very frustrating, and a book I wish I never even read. So 11, the longest book you read this year, and that is Mile High by Liz Tom 4D. This book had 603 pages, so definitely quite long, but I actually really enjoyed it. The only thing is with Liz Tom 4D, most of her books in the Windy City series are around 500-600 pages, which is why I kept giving them 4 stars. Like, I really enjoyed them, but some of them just felt a little bit long. But Play Along was the shortest one, I think under 500 pages. But anyway, I should stick with the prompt. Longest book is Mile High. Then number 12, shortest book I read this year, and it is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. If you don't know what this book is about, it basically follows Young Hee, who is the main character. She has been living an ordinary life with her husband, but then one day she has a nightmare that makes her want to purge meat out of her system. Like, literally eating meat, even like looking at meat, trying to prepare it, makes her physically sick. And then, yeah, it kind of follows her mental deterioration throughout the perspective of the men in her family. So at first we follow the husband, then we follow, I think, her brother or her dad, and then we follow, actually no, I think there's a sister. I think it follows her sister too. I always get confused with all the perspectives. I remember it was her husband. I feel like it was her husband's, no, it was her sister's husband, so brother-in-law, and then someone in her family, like her dad or her brother. Yeah, it was very interesting. So yeah, I highly recommend it, and that is the shortest book. I think, well, I didn't write how many pages, but I think it's around 200 pages. 13, a book you haven't stopped thinking about. For me, that is Grass, because of course what it tackles, like what it shows me, like the comfort woman. I've always been interested in learning about comfort woman, especially after reading Pachinko, because that kind of loosely mentions comfort women. But this one, like literally what happened to them, you find out like what they went through. So I can't stop thinking about this book. So number 14, an unpopular book you loved. So I didn't really know what it meant by the term like unpopular book that I read. Did they mean a book that has a low rating or a book that hasn't been read many times? So I'm going to share 2 with you. So in terms of how many people have read this book or rated this book on Goodreads, I'm going to say Heartbreaker Handoff by Lex Martin. This is, I believe, the 5th book in the series that this book is a part of. I don't remember the name of the series, but I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This is basically about an NFL player, and I think it's set in college, and an NFL cheerleader. She ends up being pregnant because of her ex-boyfriend, but the NFL player, who is also her best friend, he steps up. She's kind of worried about telling her dad, who is also the coach of the NFL team at their college. She's worried about telling him, especially who got her pregnant, who was her ex. So her best friend steps up and he says he's the baby daddy, and then he also just ends up helping her. I don't know, it was a very precious. So I'm very sad that not many people have read this book or rated this book on Goodreads. But in terms of average rating on Goodreads, so not a lot of people liked this book. I think I'm gonna say We Used to Live Here by Marcus Lever. I don't know, I think this has like a 3-point-something average rating on Goodreads. I gave it 4 stars because I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited for the Netflix adaptation to be released because I might reread this book before watching the whatever it is. It might be a TV show or a movie. 15. What was the highest and lowest rated books you read this year on Goodreads? Do you agree with the ratings? So I'm gonna include 2 for the highest rated because one was a reread. So the reread was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. Of course, this has a high rating is Harry Potter, and I definitely agree with it because Prisoner of Azkaban is my favorite book in the series. I love Sirius Black and Remus Lupin, and I just love how fast-paced this book is. Or we can go for the highest rated, which isn't a reread. It was read by me for the first time. Again, Grass, because the people that have read this graphic novel loved it. In terms of the lowest rated book, it is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I did end up enjoying this book, but I gave it 3 stars, which is still good in my opinion. It means it was okay. I understand why, because Han Kang, she chooses to write her stories about like very interesting topics, but also from very interesting perspectives. I don't know, she likes showing how different people view a situation. So I understand why this wouldn't be the highest rated. Also, if it's a translated book, sometimes things get lost in translation. Like 16 is fave quotable books of the year. I have probably all my 5-star reads on Goodreads that I would say are fave quotable books. I don't really keep track of quotes. I do highlight on my Kindle and sometimes in person, but I don't know which books. Probably most of the romance that I read and rate 5 stars or even 4 stars plus. 17, book with the most unique concept. I think I'm gonna go for The Vegetarian by Han Kang. I don't know, just the 3 different perspectives that Han Kang chooses to tell the story from, especially since they're male perspectives about a woman whose health is deteriorating, her mental health, and how, I don't know, she showed mental health is treated in Korea because this book is set in Korea. Han Kang is a Korean author. Like, it was just really unique to me and nothing like I've ever read before. So 18, book you read that you would reread. So of course I'm gonna go for 2 books I've already mentioned. Play Along by Liz Tomfordy, because I love Kennedy and Isaiah. Like, I love that book. Like, that book was my most highly anticipated in that series because I love the characters so much, and Liz Tomfordy did not disappoint. Or Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I keep thinking of this as the book that I would love to reread, but for the first time ever. So I'm like reading this, never having read this before. Like, that would be amazing. But I definitely see myself rereading this in the future. So guys, we have 2 more questions. We have reading goal reflection. So 2024 reading goal reflection and 2025 reading goal. So for my reflections, I wanted to read 24 books, so that means 2 books a month, but I ended up reading over 40 books, which I'm really happy about. Like, pat on the back. Somehow when I was working full-time and I was stressed out at my job, I was reading a lot because I was trying to escape and it felt good, so very happy with myself. And then in 2025, I think my reading goal on Goodreads is going to be 50 books because I think I can achieve it, and I don't know, I have a new found love for reading. Not that I didn't read a lot of books last year in 2023, but I don't know, I just feel like I'm finally reading books that I want to talk about, and I've missed being a part of BookTube, so that will be another motivation for me to read. Question 20. After 2024 reading, what are you prioritizing in 2025 reading wise? So I really want to get through most of my Kindle and physical TBR books. On my physical TBR right now I have 4 books, but I think I'm gonna get some books as Christmas presents, so there's going to be a couple more. I know that's not a lot of books, but on my Kindle I think I have around 40, but that's mostly, I think I have like 20 books that I've purchased on my Kindle and then like 20 books that I've borrowed from Kindle Unlimited. I also have some books that I'm going to mention the titles of that I really want to get to in 2025. So we have To Kill a Kingdom. This has been on my TBR for a while now, for a couple years. Then we have The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I think this was very popular and a lot of people really enjoyed it, so that's why I want to read it. We have The Secret History by Donna Tartt, which I really want to read. I actually have a physical copy that I bought in Poland when I went traveling there. We also have The Plotters, which is a Korean book that my auntie recommended. I think it's a thriller type book, so I really want to get to it. And lastly, I want to read the rest of the Fae Isles Madden-mills series. So the first book is Court of Blood and Bindings, which I believe I read in 2023. Really enjoyed it. I was really excited to continue with the series. Never did. I actually have all the books on my Kindle because they're part of Kindle Unlimited. But yeah, that is it for my end of year tag. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know the answers to these questions in the comments because I'm curious about your answers, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye guys.